Every morning at Naval Base Coronado, while most sailors were still fumbling for coffee and complaining about the San Diego heat, Maya Reynolds was already hard at work. By 0530 hours, she'd have meticulously organized her maintenance station, each cleaning tool arranged with surgical precision before anyone else arrived. Her movements were deliberate and respectful, each weapon component handled with a reverence that spoke volumes about her character. The ritual meant something to her, honoring things greater than herself. But no one noticed. To them, she was just the weapons maintenance technician who cleaned their firearms, replaced worn parts, and made sure their equipment functioned flawlessly when lives depended on it. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Lieutenant Commander James Barrett, the SEAL Team weapons officer, treated her like an afterthought, convenient when needed, invisible otherwise. "Reynolds, make sure those M4s are spotless before afternoon training," Barrett would bark, never bothering to make eye contact. "And don't touch the specialized equipment. That's for qualified operators only." Maya would nod silently, taking her tools to her workstation. She'd run her microfiber cloth along each barrel with the same care a violinist might show a Stradivarius. Her hands moved with practiced familiarity, checking every mechanism, every sight adjustment. The SEALs who occasionally glanced her way assumed it was just thoroughness. They had no idea she was mentally cataloging every imperfection, every misalignment that could throw off a shot by millimeters at distance, the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. During lunch breaks, while others gathered at outdoor tables swapping stories about weekend liberty plans, Maya sat alone with technical manuals or stared out at the Pacific Ocean that reminded her of her childhood home. She'd grown up in coastal Maine, where her mother, a gunsmith with generational knowledge passed down through their family, had taught her that patience around firearms meant survival, and precision meant everything. "Hey, Reynolds," called out Petty Officer First Class Derek Wilson, a cocky 26-year-old from Tennessee who'd barely qualified on advanced marksmanship. "You ever actually fire one of those things you're always polishing? Or just pretend?" His buddies laughed. Maya looked up from the bolt carrier group she was cleaning, offered a small, inscrutable smile, and returned to her work. Let them think what they wanted. Her mother had always told her that wolves don't need to announce themselves to sheep. The truth was Maya Reynolds had been handling firearms since she was 8 years old. Every weekend for a decade, her mother, whose expertise had quietly served elite military and law enforcement units across the country, had taken her to their family's private range carved into the Maine coastline. She taught Maya to read wind patterns and the way the coastal grasses bent, to calculate elevation adjustments instinctively, to control her breathing so precisely that her heartbeat became an ally rather than a disruption to her aim. But the Navy didn't care about informal training or family traditions. They cared about military occupational specialties, training certifications, documented qualifications. Maya had the skills, but lacked the paperwork. So she accepted the role they gave her, invisible support staff who maintained equipment for real operators. The irony wasn't lost on her. She watched them waste ammunition on shots she could make blindfolded. Some struggled with basic wind compensation techniques her mother had drilled into her before she could ride a bicycle, but she remained silent, did her job, served without recognition. Barrett seemed to take particular pleasure in reminding her of her place. "You're not qualified on any of these weapon systems, Reynolds. Your job is maintenance, not marksmanship. Leave the shooting to people who actually know what they're doing." What Barrett didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Maya's quiet demeanor wasn't from incompetence. It was from discipline. Her mother had taught her that true weapons experts didn't boast about their skills. They simply performed when performance mattered. And deep down, Maya suspected that day was coming soon. The rumors started 2 weeks later, spreading through the barracks like wildfire. Word was that Reynolds had failed her annual qualification shooting badly. Wilson, who seemed to make it his personal mission to ensure everyone knew about her supposed inadequacies, was more than happy to share the details. 25-yard stationary targets, he announced during chow, loud enough for half the dining facility to hear. She couldn't hit center mass at all. Barrett had to stop the test early because she was embarrassing herself. The story grew with each telling. By the time it reached the vehicle depot, Maya had supposedly missed every single shot. By evening muster, she'd allegedly broken down crying on the range. The narrative was always the same. The weapons tech who thought she could play with the operators had been humiliated. Lieutenant Commander Barrett did nothing to discourage the gossip. If anything, he seemed to enjoy it. Reynolds is good at one thing, he'd tell anyone who'd listen. Making weapons look pretty. But shooting them? That's a different skill set entirely. What none of them noticed was how Maya reacted when she watched their training sessions. Every time an operator missed an obvious shot, her jaw would tighten almost imperceptibly. When they struggled with range estimation or failed to account for wind drift, she'd frown slightly, like someone watching a mechanic use the wrong tool for a simple job. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Petty Officer 2nd Class Olivia Martinez, a communications specialist from New Mexico, was one of the few who paid attention. A former competitive shooter whose grandfather had coached Olympic marksmen, she recognized real expertise when she saw it. "You know something about shooting," Martinez said one afternoon, finding Maya cleaning a collection of sidearms in the armory. It wasn't a question. Maya looked up, meeting her eyes for a moment before returning to her work. "I know how to clean them." "That's not what I meant." Martinez pulled up a stool. "Yesterday, when Rodriguez was struggling with that 300-yard shot, you shook your head before he even pulled the trigger. You knew he was going to miss high and right. Lucky guess." "No," Martinez said firmly. "You were reading the wind, calculating the angle. I saw you doing the math in your head." "My grandfather used to do the same thing when he was coaching." Maya's hand stilled on the pistol slide. For just a moment, her careful mask slipped and Martinez caught a glimpse of something deeper. Knowledge, experience, maybe even frustration. "Your grandfather sounds like a wise man," Maya said finally. That evening, Martinez's curiosity got the better of her. She had access to personnel files through her communications role, and something about Maya Reynolds didn't add up. The woman was too calm, too knowledgeable, too comfortable around weapons to be just a maintenance technician. The file was mostly standard information, basic training records, technical school completion, duty assignments, but buried in the electronic records was a single line that made Martinez's blood run cold. Restricted. Operation Tidewater training conducted under Captain E. Mitchell, clearance level 3. Martinez stared at the screen. Captain Eli Mitchell. Everyone in naval special warfare knew that name. The architect of Operation Tidewater, one of the most secretive hostage rescue operations in recent history. The mission that went catastrophically wrong but somehow still succeeded against impossible odds. The operation with less than a 5% survival rate. What was a weapons maintenance technician doing with training records connected to a legendary SEAL commander? Before she could dig deeper, the file locked her out. But the seed was planted. Maya Reynolds wasn't who she appeared to be, and Martinez had a feeling that everyone on this base was about to find out exactly who they'd been underestimating. The next morning brought news that would change everything. Naval Base Coronado was hosting a distinguished visitor, and there would be a weapons demonstration for advanced SEAL armaments, including the prized HK416 rifles, the specialized assault weapons used for the most critical missions. The demonstration had half the operators buzzing with excitement. None of them suspected that the quiet woman polishing their weapons was about to turn their world upside down. But Martinez was beginning to understand that sometimes the most dangerous people were the ones nobody bothered to see. The announcement came during morning formation, delivered by Commander Wallace himself. "Attention! We have the honor of hosting Captain Eli Mitchell tomorrow for a specialized weapons demonstration. This is an opportunity to showcase the exceptional training and capability of our SEAL teams and support personnel." A buzz of excitement rippled through the ranks. Captain Mitchell was a living legend, the architect of impossible victories and the kind of warrior that other special operators told stories about. For most of them, this would be the chance of a lifetime. Lieutenant Commander Barrett practically glowed with anticipation. This was his domain, his show, his moment to shine in front of naval special warfare royalty. He spent the rest of the day making preparations, selecting his best operators, and ensuring everything would be perfect. "Reynolds," he barked as Maya worked on a laser targeting system, "I want every weapon system spotless tomorrow, and stay in the background during the demonstration. This is for qualified personnel only. Understood?" "Understood, sir." But Barrett wasn't finished. Over the next few hours, his casual dismissiveness evolved into something more pointed, more cruel. Maybe it was the pressure of the upcoming demonstration. Or maybe he'd simply decided that having a failed shooter on his range was an embarrassment he couldn't tolerate. "You know what, Reynolds?" he said, loud enough for everyone in the armory to hear. "Maybe you should just stay home tomorrow. I don't want our distinguished visitor seeing someone who can't even qualify on basic weapons. It might reflect poorly on the unit." The room went quiet. This wasn't just casual teasing anymore. Barrett was publicly humiliating her. Several operators looked uncomfortable, but none spoke up. The chain of command was sacred, and challenging a lieutenant commander wasn't something petty officers did lightly. Maya's hands never stopped moving as she cleaned the weapon in front of her. But Martinez noticed her knuckles had gone white around the cleaning rod. "Actually," Barrett continued, warming to his theme, "I'm thinking we need to have a conversation with the chief about your continued assignment to this section. Someone who can't handle basic marksmanship probably shouldn't be maintaining precision weapon systems." Now he'd crossed a line, threatening her job, her career, her ability to serve. That was more than casual harassment. That was destroying someone's livelihood out of petty cruelty. Maya set down her cleaning supplies and looked up at Barrett for the first time in weeks. When she spoke, her voice was calm, but there was something underneath it that made several people in the room shift uncomfortably. "Lieutenant Commander, I'll be here tomorrow as ordered. Maintaining equipment is my assigned duty, and I take my duties seriously." "Your duties," Barrett sneered, "are whatever I say they are. And tomorrow your duty is to stay invisible and let real operators do real work." That night, Maya sat alone in her quarters, staring at a framed photo of her mother. The woman had taught her that some battles chose you whether you wanted them or not. She'd also taught her that when those battles came, you fought them with honor, precision, and absolute commitment. She opened her footlocker and pulled out something she hadn't touched in months, a maintenance kit containing specialized tools that most technicians had never seen, let alone mastered. Tools designed for the most advanced weapons in the Special Operations arsenal. Tomorrow, Captain Mitchell would be watching, and whether Barrett liked it or not, Maya Reynolds was going to be there, ready to serve her country in whatever capacity was required. She'd spent months being invisible, accepting disrespect, tolerating humiliation. But tomorrow was different. Tomorrow, she had a feeling her true skills might be needed. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. "Real experts don't boast about their skills, Maya. They just perform when performance matters." Tomorrow, performance would matter. And Lieutenant Commander Barrett was about to learn that some people's silence wasn't weakness. It was discipline, waiting for the right moment to be unleashed. The morning of the demonstration dawned clear and bright, perfect conditions for the weapons showcase. Maya arrived at the range before anyone else, as usual. Today, she carried an extra case alongside her standard maintenance kit. She set up her station at the edge of the demonstration area, just as Barrett had ordered, but her eyes kept drifting to the specialized weapons laid out for inspection. By 0800 hours, Naval Base Coronado's elite operators had assembled. The demonstration would feature advanced tactics with cutting-edge weapon systems, particularly the HK416 rifles that had become legendary in special operations circles. These weren't just any rifles. They were precision-engineered machines that, in the right hands, could perform miracles. Lieutenant Commander Barrett strutted around like a peacock, inspecting equipment and barking orders. "Remember, gentlemen, we're representing the entire special warfare community today. I expect nothing less than perfection." At 0957 hours, a black SUV pulled up to the range. Captain Eli Mitchell stepped out, and every sailor snapped to attention. He was taller than Maya had expected, maybe 6'2", with salt and pepper hair and a weathered face that spoke of decades making impossible decisions under fire. His uniform displayed ribbons that read like a history of American naval operations over the past 30 years. But what struck Maya most were his eyes. They swept across the assembled operators with professional assessment, then landed on her. For just a moment, so brief that anyone else would have missed it, something flickered in his expression. Recognition? Surprise? She couldn't tell. "At ease," Mitchell said, his voice carrying the kind of authority that came from leading men through hell and bringing them home alive. "I'm here to observe, not interfere. Please continue with your demonstration." The showcase began. One by one, the SEAL operators demonstrated their proficiency with various weapon systems. They executed rapid target transitions, performed tactical reloads under simulated stress, and demonstrated the integration of their weapons with other equipment. Barrett watched with growing satisfaction. His team was performing well, and Captain Mitchell seemed impressed. Until the HK416 portion of the demonstration began. Petty Officer Wilson stepped forward, proudly carrying the team's prized HK416. This particular rifle had been customized with advanced optics, an enhanced trigger system, and a specialized barrel, a $250,000 piece of equipment. "Sir," Wilson began, addressing Captain Mitchell, "this is our primary assault weapon for close-quarters battle. The gas piston system prevents carbon buildup, making it more reliable than standard M4s in dusty environments like..." As Wilson continued his explanation, something happened. The rifle's bolt carrier jammed mid-demonstration. Wilson tried to clear the malfunction, but his movements became increasingly flustered as Captain Mitchell watched. "Having some trouble, Petty Officer?" Mitchell asked mildly. Wilson's face reddened. "Just a minor malfunction, sir. Happens occasionally with these complex systems." Barrett stepped forward, trying to salvage the situation. "Perhaps we should move to the next demonstration while our armorer takes a look." "Actually," Captain Mitchell interrupted, "this is an excellent teaching moment. Field maintenance under pressure is a critical skill." His eyes found Maya at her station. "Technician, would you assist?" Every head turned toward Maya. Barrett looked like he might object, but Mitchell's expectant gaze silenced him. Maya stepped forward, her heart pounding but her hands steady. This was the moment her mother had prepared her for without either of them knowing it. The moment when quiet competence would be tested against loud assumptions. "I'd be happy to assist, sir," she said quietly. As Maya approached, Wilson reluctantly handed over the jammed HK416. The moment the weapon touched her hands, everyone present could see the difference. She didn't handle it like a technician given an assignment. She handled it like it was an extension of herself. "May I?" she asked, gesturing to her toolkit. Captain Mitchell nodded, his eyes never leaving her hands. With methodical precision, Maya laid the rifle on the demonstration table. Rather than immediately addressing the jam, she began a comprehensive assessment. Her hands moved across the weapon in a blur of practiced efficiency. Within seconds, she had field-stripped the HK416 down to its component parts, a process that usually took even experienced operators several minutes. The assembled SEALs watched in stunned silence as Maya's fingers danced across the disassembled weapon. She identified not just the immediate jam, but 3 other potential failure points that had developed due to improper maintenance. "The buffer spring tension is off by approximately 3 millimeters, she explained, her voice now carrying the confidence of absolute expertise. "The gas tube shows carbon buildup that's affecting cycle rate, and there's a hairline stress fracture forming on the bolt lug that would have catastrophically failed within the next 200 rounds. She reassembled the weapon with even greater speed than she had taken it apart, her hands moving with a grace that spoke of thousands of hours of practice. When she handed the rifle back to Wilson, it functioned flawlessly. Captain Mitchell watched this entire process with an expression that shifted from curiosity to recognition, and finally to something approaching satisfaction. "What's your name, sailor?" he asked. "Petty Officer, 2nd Class Maya Reynolds, sir." "Well, Petty Officer Reynolds, that was the fastest and most thorough field maintenance I've seen in 20 years of special operations. Where did you learn those skills?" Before Maya could answer, Barrett stepped forward. "Sir, Reynolds is just our maintenance technician. She's not qualified on advanced systems." "Not qualified?" Mitchell's eyebrows rose. "She just diagnosed and repaired a complex malfunction in under 60 seconds. That's not just qualification, that's mastery." An uncomfortable silence fell over the range. Barrett looked like he'd been slapped. "Perhaps," Mitchell continued, his eyes still on Maya, "Petty Officer Reynolds could demonstrate the proper handling of this weapon system for us?" The suggestion hit the range like a thunderbolt. Barrett started to sputter an objection, but Mitchell's raised hand silenced him immediately. Maya felt every eye on the range boring into her. This was the moment her mother had prepared her for all those years on their private range in Maine. The moment when quiet competence would be tested against loud assumptions. "I'd be honored, sir," she said quietly. Maya took the HK416 with the calm confidence of someone who had handled such weapons thousands of times. As she checked the sights and adjusted the stock to her measurements, a hush fell over the range. This wasn't just technical proficiency. This was the fluid grace of someone for whom the weapon was simply an extension of their own body. "I'll be damned," whispered Petty Officer Martinez. "Look at her stance." Lieutenant Commander Barrett found his voice. "Sir, I have to protest. She's not certified on precision weapon systems. There are safety protocols." "Lieutenant Commander," Captain Mitchell's voice cut through the morning air like a blade. "I've made my decision. Stand down." Maya settled into position behind the rifle, and immediately every experienced operator on the range could see the difference. Her stance wasn't just textbook perfect. It was natural, intuitive. She wasn't thinking about proper form. Proper form was simply who she was. She closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the ocean breeze on her face, listening to the subtle sounds that told her everything she needed to know about the conditions. When she opened them, her breathing had already settled into the rhythm her mother had taught her. Inhale, natural pause, fire. The targets were set at various distances, from 100 to 500 yards. Maya engaged each one with the fluid economy of motion that professional shooters spend careers trying to achieve. Each shot found its mark with devastating precision. Not just center mass, perfect headshots, one after another, with split-second transitions between targets. For a moment, absolute silence fell over the range. Then, someone in the distance began shouting coordinates back to the firing line. All hits, perfect placement on all 8 targets. The silence stretched another heartbeat, then exploded into chaos. Operators were talking all at once, asking how that was possible, demanding to know who she really was. But Maya barely heard them. She was watching Captain Mitchell, who had stood up from his chair and was staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Barrett looked like he'd been hit by a truck. That was just luck. One sequence doesn't mean... "Actually, Lieutenant Commander," Captain Mitchell interrupted, his voice carrying across the range with absolute authority. "That performance tells me everything I need to know." He stepped forward, and when he spoke again, his voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. "Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce Petty Officer Maya Reynolds, formerly attached to Naval Special Warfare Development Group as an advanced weapons specialist and the primary armorer responsible for the success of Operation Tidewater." The effect was immediate and devastating. Every person on that range knew about Operation Tidewater, the hostage rescue mission with a 5% survival rate. The operation that had become legend in special operations circles. "Tidewater?" someone whispered. "Jesus Christ, she's the ghost armorer." Maya remained perfectly still, but her hands were trembling slightly. She'd spent 2 years trying to bury that part of her life, trying to find peace in maintenance work and invisible service. Now it was all coming back. Captain Mitchell continued, his voice carrying the weight of absolute truth. "During Operation Tidewater, when our primary assault team's weapons suffered catastrophic failures due to unexpected environmental conditions, Petty Officer Reynolds performed field maintenance under enemy fire that saved the entire mission. She then picked up a rifle herself and eliminated 3 confirmed high-value targets at ranges exceeding 600 yards, often in conditions that would challenge our most elite snipers." Barrett had gone completely pale. Around the range, operators were putting pieces together, remembering every joke they'd made, every dismissive comment, every time they'd treated her like she didn't belong. But the psychological cost, Mitchell continued, was significant. Taking human lives, even enemy combatants, affected her deeply. Petty Officer Reynolds requested transfer to non-combat roles. She wanted to continue serving her country, but in a way that built rather than destroyed. Maya finally spoke, slinging the rifle. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but clear enough for everyone to hear. "I didn't want anyone else to die because of my shooting. I'd had enough of killing." "Why didn't you tell us?" Wilson asked, And for the first time since she'd known him, his voice held genuine respect instead of mockery. "Because past achievements don't determine present worth," Maya replied. "I wanted to be valued for who I am now, not who I used to be." Captain Mitchell nodded approvingly. That's exactly the attitude that made her exceptional in the first place. Humility combined with extraordinary skill. The transformation in the group was complete. These operators finally understood that the quiet woman they'd dismissed possessed combat experience that equaled or exceeded their own. More than that, they understood they'd been privileged to work alongside genuine expertise and had been too blind to see it. Lieutenant Commander Barrett stood frozen, realizing that his career had just taken a hit from which it might never recover. He'd spent months humiliating a decorated special operations veteran, and he'd done it in front of witnesses. But Maya wasn't looking at Barrett anymore. She was looking at the operators who had begun approaching her with genuine respect, asking technical questions, seeking guidance from someone they finally recognized as their superior in every way that mattered. Within hours, word of the demonstration had spread throughout Naval Base Coronado like wildfire. The story grew with each telling, but for once, the embellishments didn't diminish the truth. They simply couldn't match it. By evening chow, every sailor on the base knew they'd been sharing their facility with a genuine combat veteran whose skills had saved an entire SEAL team during one of the most dangerous operations in recent history. Commander Wallace requested an immediate meeting with all personnel involved in the morning's events. The conference room felt smaller than usual as Barrett, Maya, Captain Mitchell, and the witnessing operators filed in. Wallace's expression was carefully neutral, but experienced sailors could read the storm brewing behind his eyes. "Lieutenant Commander Barrett," Wallace began without preamble, "I've received several reports about your conduct regarding Petty Officer Reynolds. Would you care to explain why you've been publicly humiliating a decorated combat veteran?" Barrett's career flashed before his eyes. "Sir, her personnel file didn't indicate. I had no knowledge of her combat experience." "Her file," Captain Mitchell interjected, "was classified for operational security reasons. But that doesn't explain why you thought it was appropriate to mock any sailor under your command, regardless of their background." Commander Wallace leaned forward. "Lieutenant Commander, I've also received reports that you threatened Petty Officer Reynolds' career and suggested she be removed from her position. Is this accurate?" The room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. Barrett knew he was finished. "Yes, sir. I made those statements." "On what grounds?" I believe she was unqualified for her position." Petty Officer Wilson, who'd been one of Barrett's most enthusiastic supporters in mocking Maya, cleared his throat. "Sir, if I may, Lieutenant Commander Barrett never gave Petty Officer Reynolds a chance to demonstrate her abilities. None of us did. We assumed that because she was quiet and worked in maintenance, she was somehow lesser." The admission took courage, and Maya felt a grudging respect for the young sailor who was essentially confessing his own prejudice to salvage what remained of Barrett's dignity. Commander Wallace turned to Maya. "Petty Officer Reynolds, why didn't you report this harassment through proper channels?" Maya had been dreading this question. "Sir, I was trying to serve quietly. I hoped that if I did my job well and stayed out of the way, the situation would resolve itself." "That's not how the Navy works, sailor. When you're being mistreated, you have an obligation to speak up. Not just for yourself, but for every sailor who might face similar treatment in the future." Captain Mitchell spoke up. "Commander, if I may, Petty Officer Reynolds' approach to dealing with adversity has always been unique. During Tidewater, she volunteered for the most dangerous position, provided critical support for the entire operation, and then refused accommodation because she said she was just doing her job. She's never been comfortable with recognition." "Nevertheless," Wallace continued, "this situation is unacceptable. Lieutenant Commander Barrett, you're relieved of your position as weapons officer, effective immediately. You'll report to the executive officer for reassignment and counseling. Your fitness report will reflect today's revelations." Barrett nodded stiffly. His career wasn't over, but it had just taken a devastating hit that would follow him for years. "Petty Officer Reynolds," Wallace continued, "I'm recommending you for immediate promotion to Petty Officer First Class and reassignment to a position more appropriate for your experience level. We also need to discuss correcting your service record to properly reflect your combat experience." "Sir," Maya said carefully, "I requested the transfer to maintenance work. I'm content with my current position." Content or not, the Navy has invested significant resources in your training, and we're not utilizing your capabilities effectively. Wallace turned to Mitchell. Captain, do you have any recommendations? Mitchell smiled slightly. Actually, I do. Naval Special Warfare's Advanced Weapons Training Division has been looking for experienced personnel to develop new maintenance protocols. Someone with Petty Officer Reynolds' combination of combat experience and technical ability would be invaluable. The suggestion hung in the air. It would mean leaving Coronado, leaving the quiet maintenance work she'd found peaceful, and returning to a world that revolved around precision weaponry. But it would also mean helping other operators develop skills that might save their lives. Maya looked around the room at the faces of sailors who'd spent months dismissing her, who now looked at her with respect and something approaching awe. I'd be honored to consider such an assignment, sir. As the meeting concluded, sailors filed out quietly, many stopping to offer Maya personal apologies. Wilson lingered longest. Ma'am, I owe you more than an apology. I was wrong about everything, and I'm ashamed of how I acted. Maya studied his face, seeing genuine remorse. We all make assumptions, Wilson. The question is what we do when we discover we're wrong. I'd like to learn from you, if you're willing to teach. Everyone deserves a second chance to prove their character, she replied, including me. That evening, as Maya cleaned her personal toolkit one last time in the armory, she reflected on the day's events. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new responsibilities, new opportunities to serve. But tonight, she was content knowing that sometimes the most important battles were won not with bullets, but with quiet dignity and the courage to be exactly who you were meant to be. 3 weeks later, Maya found herself at Naval Amphibious Base Little Creek, Virginia, walking through the halls of the Advanced Weapons Training Division headquarters. The building hummed with quiet intensity. This was where the military's most elite weapons specialists came to push the boundaries of what was possible with modern firearms. Captain Marcus Donahue, the division commander, greeted her personally. A compact man with intelligent eyes and calloused hands that spoke of decades working with precision tools, he had read her complete file, including the classified portions that had remained hidden at Coronado. Petty Officer Reynolds, he said, using her new rank. I'll be honest with you. When Captain Mitchell recommended you for this position, I was skeptical. Teaching advanced weapons maintenance isn't just about being able to field strip a rifle blindfolded. It's about understanding how to transfer complex skills to operators who may never have your natural ability. They walked through the facility, past indoor workshops where specialists practiced with equipment that represented the cutting edge of military technology. Through soundproof glass, Maya watched instructors working with small groups, demonstrating techniques that she recognized from her mother's training and her own combat experience. Your assignment, Donahue continued, will be developing curriculum for what we're calling the Precision Weapons Program. Too many of our advanced operators have excellent tactical skills but lack the deeper understanding of their equipment that could mean the difference between mission success and failure. Based on your record and your unique approach to service, we think you might have insights that could benefit the entire program. Maya paused at a window overlooking an indoor range where operators were attempting to diagnose malfunctions in various weapon systems. She could see immediately what they were doing wrong, focusing on symptoms rather than causes, missing the subtle indicators that experienced armorers recognize instinctively. Permission to ask a question, sir? Of course. Are we training them to be better killers or better operators? Donahue stopped walking. The question cut to the heart of something he'd been wrestling with throughout his career. What's the difference? A killer focuses on destroying the target. An operator focuses on completing the mission. Sometimes that requires shooting. Sometimes it requires restraint. The difference is everything. For the first time since they'd met, Donahue smiled. Captain Mitchell said you'd have a unique perspective. I think he understated it. Over the following weeks, Maya threw herself into her new role with the same quiet intensity she brought to weapons maintenance. But now, instead of cleaning rifles, she was developing training protocols that emphasized holistic understanding alongside technical proficiency. Her first class consisted of 12 operators, all experienced warriors who'd been selected for advanced training. Chief Petty Officer Thomas Griffin, recently returned from deployment, looked skeptical as Maya introduced herself. I'm not here to teach you how to shoot, Maya began. You already know how to shoot. I'm here to teach you how your weapons truly function under stress, how to maintain them when everything is going wrong, and how to understand them as extensions of yourselves rather than just tools. She led them through exercises that had nothing to do with firing rounds, disassembling weapons blindfolded, diagnosing induced malfunctions by sound and feel, understanding the metallurgical properties of different components and how they reacted under various environmental conditions. Every weapon has a voice, she explained during one session. It tells you what it needs, what's wrong, what's about to fail, but only if you know how to listen. In combat, you're not just maintaining equipment. You're maintaining the lifeline that keeps you and your team alive. The technical skill is meaningless without the intuition to apply it appropriately. Chief Griffin approached her after the third day of training. "Ma'am, this isn't like any weapons course I've ever taken." "Good. How do you feel about that?" "Honestly, it's harder than I expected. You're making us think about things that most instructors never mention, like yesterday when you asked us to describe the difference between a critical failure and a catastrophic one, and how to tell which is developing by subtle changes in recoil pattern." "I've been thinking about that for 18 hours straight." Maya nodded. "That's the point. Anyone can learn to clear a simple jam. But understanding when a weapon is telling you it's about to fail catastrophically, before it actually does, that's what separates good operators from exceptional ones." Word of her unconventional teaching methods spread quickly through the special operations community. Other instructors began requesting copies of her curriculum. Senior officers who'd heard about the quote weapons started attending her sessions as observers, but the real validation came from her students. Operators who completed her program didn't just maintain their weapons more effectively. They developed an almost supernatural connection with their equipment, an intuitive understanding that allowed them to diagnose problems before they became mission-critical failures. Late one evening, as Maya reviewed performance reports from her latest class, she found a handwritten note that had been slipped under her office door. "Ma'am, my father always said that the best teachers are the ones who change how you think, not just what you know. Thank you for helping me understand that being an operator is about more than being a shooter. It's about mastering every element of your craft, especially the ones nobody sees." Petty Officer Martinez. Maya smiled, recognizing the name. Olivia Martinez had transferred to Little Creek, specifically to take her course, having been one of the few people at Coronado who'd recognized there was more to Maya than met the eye. As she turned off her office lights and headed to her quarters, Maya reflected on the strange path that had brought her here. From coastal Maine with her mother, through the hell of Operation Tidewater, to the quiet service of equipment maintenance, and now to shaping the next generation of special operations armorers. Each phase had taught her something different about service, about sacrifice, about the responsibility that came with specialized skills. But perhaps the most important lesson was one her mother had taught her years ago. True strength wasn't about how much force you could bring to bear, but about knowing when force was necessary and when wisdom was more powerful. Tomorrow would bring new students, new challenges, new opportunities to serve. But tonight, she was content knowing that her mother's lessons lived on in every operator she trained, and that sometimes the most important impacts came not from pulling triggers, but from ensuring that when triggers needed to be pulled, the weapons behind them wouldn't fail. 6 months into her assignment at Little Creek, Maya received an unexpected visitor. She was reviewing training schedules in her office when her assistant knocked on the door. "Ma'am, there's a Captain Mitchell here to see you." Captain Mitchell entered with the same quiet authority she remembered from Coronado, but now his face carried a smile of genuine pride. "Petty Officer Reynolds, I hope you don't mind the unannounced visit. I was in the area and wanted to see how you were settling in." They walked through the facility together, observing classes in session. In one room, operators were practicing what Maya called environmental diagnosis exercises that required them to identify weapon malfunctions while blindfolded, using only touch and sound. "Your program has generated quite a bit of discussion in Pentagon circles," Mitchell observed. "Initial reports suggest that operators completing your training show a 60% decrease in mission-critical equipment failures compared to traditional maintenance programs." Maya watched through the observation window as one of her students, working purely by feel, identified a hairline fracture in a bolt that would have been invisible to the naked eye. Exactly the kind of intuitive understanding she'd been trying to instill. "Sir, I've been thinking about something you said at Coronado, about the cost of combat and choosing when to pull the trigger and when to put the rifle down." "Go on." I think I spent years believing that my value as a sailor was tied to my ability to maintain weapons for combat. But what I'm learning here is that my real value might be in teaching others to understand their equipment so deeply that they're never left vulnerable when it matters most. Mitchell nodded slowly. Tidewater was necessary, Maya. What you did saved lives. But you're right. Teaching operators to make better decisions about their equipment might save even more lives in the long run. They paused outside a classroom where Chief Griffin was leading a discussion about the ethical responsibilities of weapons specialists. The conversation was complex, nuanced, exactly the kind of thinking that separated professional operators from mere technicians. There's something else, Mitchell continued. The Navy is considering expanding your program fleet-wide. They want to integrate your methods into all advanced armorer training. The implications hit Maya immediately. Her mother's lessons, learned in their coastal Maine workshop, refined through combat experience, and tempered by the wisdom that came from understanding the true cost of violence, would become part of how America trained its warriors. Sir, that's an incredible responsibility. Yes, it is. But you've already proven you can handle incredible responsibilities. The question is whether you're ready to step into a larger role. We're talking about a promotion to Chief Petty Officer and assignment to head a new department, Advanced Weapons Integration and Maintenance. That evening, Maya sat in her small apartment, staring at the framed photo of her mother that had traveled with her from post to post. She had died a year after Operation Tidewater, proud of her daughter but worried about the weight she carried from that operation. Now Maya wondered what she'd think about this new opportunity. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Olivia Martinez. Ma'am, heard the news about the program expansion. My entire team is requesting your training. You're changing how we think about being operators. More messages followed. Sailors from her classes sharing stories about how her teaching had influenced their missions in the field. Officers reporting improved performance from personnel who'd completed her program. Even international allies expressing interest in her curriculum. The gunsmith's daughter had found her true calling, and it wasn't behind a weapon. It was teaching others to truly understand theirs. The next morning, Maya found herself back at the indoor range, where she'd first demonstrated her abilities months earlier. But instead of diagnosing malfunctions herself, she stood behind a group of young operators, teaching them to hear the subtle differences in sound that indicated potential failures. Remember, she told them, precision isn't just about fixing what's broken. It's about preventing breakage in the first place. Understanding your weapons so completely that you can sense problems before they manifest. Your expertise with maintenance is meaningless if you don't have foresight in your judgment. A young petty officer raised her hand. Ma'am, how do you know when you're detecting an actual problem versus just being paranoid in a high-stress situation? Maya smiled, hearing her mother's voice in the question. You prepare beforehand by thinking through scenarios, understanding your equipment at the molecular level, and practicing good diagnosis when the stakes are low. When the pressure hits, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall back on your level of preparation. As the class continued, Maya noticed movement at the edge of the range. Lieutenant Commander Barrett from Coronado was standing there, apparently having traveled to Little Creek specifically to see her. When the training session ended, he approached hesitantly. Ma'am, I know I have no right to ask for your time, but I was hoping we could talk. They walked to a quiet area overlooking the training facilities. Barrett looked older, humbled by the events that had cost him his position and damaged his career. I came to apologize, he said simply. Not just for how I treated you, but for what I failed to learn from you. I spent months working alongside someone who could have made me a better officer, a better leader, a better person. Instead, I let my prejudices blind me to an opportunity that will never come again. Maya studied his face, seeing genuine remorse. We all make mistakes, Lieutenant Commander. The question is what we do with the lessons they teach us. I've requested transfer to a training unit. I want to learn to teach sailors the way you do, with respect, with understanding, with focus on making them better people as well as better operators. That's a worthy goal. Barrett hesitated, then continued. Ma'am, there's something else. Petty Officer Wilson sends his regards. He completed Advanced Armorer School last month, top of his class. He said your example taught him that quiet competence was more valuable than loud boasting. The conversation reminded Maya of something her mother had often said. Influence spreads in ways you never expect. The lessons she'd learned in their Maine workshop were now shaping sailors across the Navy. creating ripples that would extend far beyond anything she could directly observe. As the sun set over Little Creek, Maya made her decision about the promotion and expanded role. She would accept, not because she craved recognition or authority, but because her country needed sailors who understood that true excellence came from mastery, humility, and the courage to make difficult decisions under pressure. That night, she wrote a letter to her mother, as she did every year on the anniversary of her death. "Mom, remember how you used to say that the most important maintenance was preventative, not reactive? I finally understand what you meant. Teaching operators to truly know their weapons, to hear what they're saying, to understand them at a soul-deep level, that might be the most important lesson of all. The workshop lessons you taught me aren't just living on in me anymore. They're living on in every sailor I train, and they'll live on in everyone those sailors train in turn. Your legacy isn't just in the lives I helped save at Tidewater. It's in all the unnecessary failures that won't happen, because sailors learned to listen to their equipment before it failed. I think you'd be proud of that." 6 months later, when the Navy officially announced the new Department of Advanced Weapons Integration and Maintenance, the press release included a quote from its director, Chief Petty Officer Maya Reynolds. "Our goal isn't to create better killers. It's to create better operators, sailors who understand that true precision extends far beyond maintenance. It includes precision in judgment, precision in decision-making, and precision in understanding when technology is an asset and when it might become a liability." The quiet woman who had once been dismissed as just cleaning weapons had become one of the most influential trainers in the modern military. But she still began each day the same way she had at Coronado, with a precise arrangement of her tools, standing straight and silent, honoring things greater than herself. On a brisk autumn morning at Little Creek, Maya stood before 30 new students, a mix of seasoned operators and fresh-faced petty officers with promising aptitude. This particular class was special, the first international cohort, with representatives from Britain's SBS, Australian SASR, and Canada's Joint Task Force 2. "Welcome to Advanced Weapons Integration," Maya began, her voice carrying the quiet authority that had become her trademark. "Before we touch a single weapon, I want to make something clear. This isn't about hardware. It's about mindset." She gestured to the wall behind her where a single quote was displayed. "The weapon is merely a tool. The mind that wields it determines its true value." "My mother wrote that," Maya continued. "She was a third-generation gunsmith who understood something most people never grasp. True mastery comes from serving the mission, not your ego. During your time here, you'll learn to diagnose failures that most people can't even see. You'll develop an intuition for metal and mechanics that borders on supernatural. But none of that matters if you don't understand why we do this." A British operator raised his hand. "And why do we do this, Chief?" Maya smiled. "So that when others need to rely on their equipment in moments where lives hang in the balance, that equipment doesn't become another obstacle to overcome. We serve those who serve. That's our mission." The training philosophy that Maya had developed was revolutionary in its simplicity. Weapons weren't just machines to be maintained, but complex systems that communicated their needs. Her students learned to feel the subtle vibrations that indicated stress fractures, to hear the almost imperceptible changes in sound that preceded catastrophic failures, to smell the specific odors associated with different types of metal fatigue. "Close your eyes," she instructed during the second week of training. The class was gathered around a table containing 20 identical-looking rifles. "Now tell me which of these weapons has been fired recently." The operators looked confused but followed her instruction. Maya moved silently among them, observing their concentration. "Third from the left," said an Australian sergeant after a moment. "I can smell a slight copper trace and heat signature." "Good," Maya nodded. "Now, which one has a stress fracture in the lower receiver?" This time, the room was silent for nearly a minute. Finally, a young American petty officer spoke up. "Second from the right, ma'am." When you walked past it, there was a different resonance to the metal. Maya raised an eyebrow, impressed. "Excellent observation, Reynolds. You're developing the sensitivity we need." The petty officer, no relation, just a coincidence of names, beamed under the praise. This is what sets apart those who merely maintain weapons from those who truly understand them, Maya continued. Anyone can follow a checklist. What we're developing here is an intuitive connection, the ability to perceive problems before they manifest. Captain Mitchell visited regularly, often bringing high-ranking officials to observe Maya's training methods. During one such visit, accompanied by the Navy's Deputy Chief of Operations, he found Maya leading an unusual exercise. Her students were assembled in complete darkness, working by touch alone to diagnose and repair induced malfunctions in unfamiliar weapon systems. They communicated in whispers, creating an atmosphere of intense concentration. "What exactly are we observing here, Captain?" the Admiral whispered. "The future of special operations maintenance, sir," Mitchell replied. Chief Reynolds believes that by depriving them of sight, she forces them to develop other sensory pathways, touch, hearing, even smell, that create a more holistic understanding of the equipment. The Admiral watched as a team of operators successfully identified and repaired a complex malfunction in under 3 minutes, working entirely by feel. "Impressive," he admitted. "But is this practical? In how many real-world scenarios will our people be maintaining equipment in pitch darkness?" Maya, who had approached silently from behind, answered before Mitchell could respond. "With respect, Admiral, that's not the point of the exercise. By removing their primary sense, I'm forcing them to develop neural pathways they normally wouldn't access. When they return to normal operations with all senses available, those pathways remain, giving them heightened awareness and capabilities that traditional training can't provide." The Admiral studied her thoughtfully. "You're training their brains, not just their hands." "Exactly, sir. A weapon is only as effective as the mind that wields it and maintains it." Later that evening, as Maya reviewed performance metrics in her office, Captain Mitchell returned alone. "You impressed him," Mitchell said, settling into a chair across from her desk. "He's recommending your program receive additional funding for expansion to all special warfare units." Maya nodded, pleased, but unsurprised. The results spoke for themselves. Units with personnel trained in her methods had reported a 78% decrease in mission-critical equipment failures over the past 6 months. "There's something else," Mitchell continued, his expression growing serious. "Operations Sandstorm." Maya's hand stilled on her keyboard. Sandstorm was classified at the highest levels, a hostage rescue operation being planned in one of the most hostile environments on Earth. Even she wasn't supposed to know about it. "Sir, I don't have clearance for that information." "You do now?" Mitchell slid a folder across her desk. "The environmental conditions are problematic. Extreme heat, microfine sand, humidity fluctuations between day and night that exceed testing parameters. We're concerned about weapons reliability." Maya opened the folder, scanning the environmental assessments. Her pulse quickened as she recognized the implications. "These conditions will cause catastrophic failures in standard issue equipment," she said finally, "even with enhanced maintenance protocols." "That's our assessment as well," Mitchell confirmed. "I need your recommendations for equipment modifications and a specialized maintenance regimen." The team deploys in 3 weeks. For the next 21 days, Maya worked around the clock, pulling in her most talented students to assist with testing and modifications. They converted one of the training bays into a makeshift environmental chamber, replicating the brutal conditions the operators would face. Standard lubricants failed within hours. Metal components showed unprecedented wear patterns. Electronic sighting systems malfunctioned unpredictably. It was a maintenance nightmare. "We need to completely rethink our approach," Maya told her team after the first week of testing. "Traditional methods won't work here." They developed a revolutionary maintenance protocol, a combination of specialized coatings, modified component parts, and a completely new approach to lubrication that utilized materials never before used in military applications. 3 days before deployment, Maya presented their solution to the operation commanders. With these modifications and maintenance protocols, mean time between failures increases from approximately 6 hours to over 72, she explained, pointing to their test results. "But there's a catch. Your operators need to understand the why, not just the how. I'm requesting permission to personally brief the team." The mission commander, a hardened veteran with 20 years in special operations, frowned. "That's not standard procedure, Chief. We normally handle our own pre-mission briefings. Sir, with respect, there's nothing standard about what we've developed here. If your operators don't understand the underlying principles, they'll revert to traditional methods when under stress, and the equipment will fail. Captain Mitchell, observing from the side, intervened. I recommend approving the Chief's request, Commander. Her expertise in this area is unmatched. Reluctantly, the mission commander agreed. That evening, Maya stood before the 14 operators who would be executing Operation Sandstorm. These were the elite of the elite, men who had proven themselves in the most demanding environments imaginable. They regarded her with polite attention but clear skepticism. "Gentlemen," she began, "I'm not here to tell you how to do your jobs. You're the best at what you do. I'm here because what you're about to face will destroy your equipment unless you approach maintenance differently." For the next 3 hours, she walked them through the modified protocols, explaining not just the procedures but the science behind them. She showed them test videos of standard approaches failing catastrophically, then demonstrated their new methods succeeding under identical conditions. As understanding dawned, skepticism gave way to respect. "These aren't suggestions," she emphasized as she concluded. "These modifications and procedures are the difference between your weapons functioning when you need them most and becoming expensive paperweights at the worst possible moment." The team leader, a seasoned chief petty officer, approached her after the briefing. "Ma'am, I've been doing this for 15 years, and I've never seen maintenance approaches like these. It's revolutionary." "Not revolutionary," Maya corrected gently. "Just adapted to your specific needs. Different environments demand different solutions." "Well, whatever you call it, you've given us an edge we didn't have before. Thank you." 2 weeks later, Maya was working late in her office when Captain Mitchell appeared at her door, his face showing the strain of sleepless nights. "It's done," he said simply. "Operation Sandstorm. Complete success. All hostages recovered. All operators returned safely." Maya exhaled slowly, releasing tension she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "And the equipment?" Mitchell's tired expression gave way to a smile. "Not a single critical failure. The team leader specifically cited your modifications as crucial to the mission's success. In his words, under standard protocols, we would have experienced catastrophic failures approximately 4 hours into the operation, leaving us compromised in hostile territory. Chief Reynolds' innovation saved the mission and possibly our lives." Maya nodded, satisfaction washing over her. This was why she did what she did. Not for recognition, but for the knowledge that her work made a difference when it truly mattered. "There's more," Mitchell continued. "The Secretary of the Navy has taken personal interest in your program. He's recommending it be established as a permanent center of excellence, with expanded facilities and personnel." "Sir, that's well-deserved," Mitchell finished for her. "You've revolutionized how we approach a fundamental aspect of special operations. What you've built here will save lives for generations to come." The following month brought changes that even Maya couldn't have anticipated. The newly established Center for Advanced Weapons Integration and Maintenance received dedicated facilities, increased staffing, and a mandate to develop cutting-edge approaches for the entire Navy. More significantly, Maya's methods were being incorporated into the basic training of all Navy armorer personnel, a transformation that would eventually touch every weapon in the fleet. On the day the new center was officially commissioned, a surprise visitor arrived. Retired Master Chief Eleanor Reynolds, Maya's mother, who had traveled from Maine to see what her daughter had built. Eleanor moved slowly now, her hands showing the arthritic changes that come from decades of precision work, but her eyes were as sharp as ever as she toured the facility. "I never imagined this," she said quietly as they stood in the main training bay, watching students practice diagnostic techniques Maya had developed. "When I taught you in our little workshop, I thought I was just passing on family traditions." "You were," Maya replied, watching her mother's face. "Everything I teach here started with what you showed me." Eleanor shook her head in wonder. "This goes far beyond anything I taught you. You've taken those basics and created something entirely new." "Not new," Maya echoed her own words from weeks earlier. "Just adapted to specific needs. Different environments demand different solutions." Eleanor smiled, recognizing her own wisdom reflected back at her. "I said that to you when you were 12. trying to understand why different firearms needed different maintenance approaches. Some lessons stick with you forever, Maya acknowledged. They watched in comfortable silence as the students worked, their movements becoming more confident, more intuitive with each passing day. Your father would have been so proud, Eleanor said finally. He always said you had a gift, a way of understanding machines that went beyond the mechanical. Maya's father had been a Navy SEAL himself, killed in action when she was just 10 years old. His death had been the catalyst for her mother's decision to leave the military contracting world and return to their family's traditional gunsmithing roots in Maine. I think about him every day, Maya admitted. Especially here, surrounded by operators like him. He believed that true mastery wasn't about the tools you used, but about the mindset you brought to the work, Eleanor recalled. He'd say that any fool could pull a trigger, but knowing when and why to pull it, or not pull it, that was wisdom. That's exactly what we teach here, Maya said. The integration of technical skill with judgment and wisdom. Later that evening, Maya hosted a small dinner in her quarters for her mother and Captain Mitchell. As they shared stories over a simple meal, the conversation turned to the future. The program is established now, Mitchell observed. You've built something that will outlast all of us. The question is, what's next for you personally, Chief? Maya considered the question. The past year had been a whirlwind of change and growth. What had begun as a simple demonstration of skill had evolved into a transformation of Navy doctrine. I've been thinking about that, she admitted. As much as I love what we've built here, I feel there's something more I should be doing. Such as? Her mother prompted. Field implementation, Maya explained. We're developing these advanced methods, but the real test is how they perform in actual operational environments across the globe. I'm considering requesting assignment as a roving instructor, bringing these techniques directly to forward-deployed units. Mitchell nodded thoughtfully. Putting yourself back in harm's way. Not intentionally, Maya clarified, but yes, closer to operational realities. The best innovations come from direct observation of real-world challenges. Eleanor studied her daughter's face, recognizing the same determination she'd seen in her husband years ago. You've always needed to see the impact of your work firsthand, she observed. Even as a child, you were never satisfied with being told something worked. You had to witness it yourself. A valuable trait in her line of work, Mitchell noted. Too many trainers become disconnected from operational realities. I just want to make sure that what we're teaching actually serves those who need it most, Maya said simply. 3 months later, Maya found herself aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln in the North Arabian Sea, implementing her training program with the ship's Special Operations Detachment. The carrier's massive hangar bay had been partially converted into a training space where she worked with small groups of operators and their support personnel. Commander Sarah Lawson, the detachment's commanding officer, observed one of these sessions with growing appreciation. I've never seen my people this engaged in maintenance training, she commented as Maya's class concluded. Usually it's treated as a necessary evil, something to endure rather than embrace. That's because traditional maintenance is taught as a series of steps to memorize, Maya explained. We teach it as a relationship to develop, an ongoing conversation between operator and equipment. Well, whatever you're doing, it's working. My team is actually excited about maintenance now. I never thought I'd see the day. Maya smiled. That's the highest compliment you could give me. Later that evening, as Maya reviewed her training notes on the carrier's observation deck, Commander Lawson joined her. There's something I've been wanting to ask you, Lawson said, settling beside her. The stories about Operation Tidewater, about what you did there, are they true? Maya stiffened slightly. Despite her current recognition, she still preferred not to discuss that particular chapter of her service. Which stories? She asked carefully. That when the primary weapon systems failed, you not only performed impossible repairs under fire, but then picked up a rifle yourself and eliminated threats that had pinned down the entire team. Maya looked out over the darkening ocean. Parts of those stories have been embellished over time. But the core is true, Lawson pressed. After a long moment, Maya nodded. Yes, the core is true. What made you walk away from that path? You could have had any position in special operations after that performance. The question was asked without judgment, just genuine curiosity from one commander to a valued specialist. "Taking lives changes you," Maya said finally. "Even when it's necessary. Even when it saves others." I realized I could contribute more by ensuring others had reliable tools than by wielding those tools myself. Lawson considered this. "So you found another way to serve." "We all have different callings within the larger mission," Maya affirmed. "This is mine." Their conversation was interrupted by a young petty officer who approached at a run, his expression urgent. "Commander, Chief, you're needed in CIC immediately. We've received a priority transmission." In the carrier's Combat Information Center, Captain Ellis, the ship's commanding officer, was reviewing tactical displays with his senior staff. "Ah, Reynolds. Good," he said as Maya entered. "We have a situation developing that requires your particular expertise." He gestured to a satellite image showing a small vessel approximately 60 nautical miles from their position. "American aid worker transport," he explained. "Engine failure has left them adrift in contested waters. We're dispatching a RHIB with a security element to provide assistance and tow them to safety, but..." "But?" Maya prompted. "Intelligence indicates possible hostiles in the area. If our security element encounters resistance, they'll be operating in high salt, high humidity conditions with significant temperature fluctuations. Precisely the environment where your specialized maintenance protocols have proven most effective." Maya understood immediately. "You want me to accompany the security element?" It wasn't a question, but Captain Ellis nodded confirmation. "Normally we wouldn't send a training specialist on an operational mission, but these are exceptional circumstances. Your expertise could be critical if the situation deteriorates." Commander Lawson spoke up. "Sir, with respect, Chief Reynolds is not currently assigned to operational duties." "I'm aware, Commander." "This is a request, not an order," the captain clarified, looking directly at Maya. "The choice is yours, Chief." Maya didn't hesitate. "I'll go, sir. When do we deploy?" 30 minutes. Gear up and report to the flight deck." As Maya hurried to prepare, she found herself thinking of her mother's workshop in Maine, where she'd first learned that understanding your tools meant the difference between success and failure. She thought of Operation Tidewater, where that understanding had saved lives under the most desperate circumstances. Now, once again, her unique skills were needed in the field. Different environment, different mission, but the same fundamental truth. When the moment of crisis arrived, the difference between disaster and success often came down to how well you understood what was in your hands. 30 minutes later, Maya stood on the flight deck, watching as sailors prepared the RHIB for launch. The night air was thick with salt spray and the ever-present hum of the carrier's operations. This wasn't what she had imagined when she'd requested field implementation of her training, but perhaps it was exactly what she needed, a reminder of why her work mattered, of the real-world impact of what she taught. As she boarded the RHIB alongside 6 special operations personnel, Maya felt a familiar calm settling over her. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she was ready to face them, not as the weapon, but as the one who ensured the weapons would not fail when needed most. The quiet woman who had once been dismissed as just cleaning weapons was deploying into potential danger, carrying with her not just the skills she'd developed over a lifetime, but the wisdom to know how best to use them. Some heroes charge into battle with weapons drawn. Others ensure that when those weapons are needed, they function flawlessly. Both kinds of heroes serve with honor. Both kinds of heroes make their country proud. And sometimes, if they're very lucky, both kinds of heroes get to see the lasting impact of lessons learned from a Maine gunsmith who understood that true strength always comes from within. Excellence doesn't need to announce itself. It just needs to be ready when called upon. The RHIB cut through the choppy waters, its specialized engines muffled to minimize detection. Maya sat amidships, surrounded by operators whose faces were obscured by tactical gear, yet whose body language she could read with practiced ease. They projected confidence tinged with the heightened awareness that comes with uncertain missions. The team leader, Senior Chief Petty Officer Gabriel Reeves, had initially seemed skeptical about having a maintenance specialist on his op. Now, 40 minutes into their journey, he leaned toward Maya. "Chief Reynolds, once we reach the vessel, I want you positioned centrally." If we encounter resistance, weapons reliability will be our priority. Maya nodded. I've prepared specific loadouts for these conditions. Each primary weapon has been modified with the salt-resistant bolt carrier groups we developed at Little Creek. The firing pins have titanium nitride coating that won't degrade in this humidity. Reeves studied her with new appreciation. You came prepared for a potential firefight. I came prepared to ensure your team has every advantage if a firefight becomes necessary, Maya corrected. There's a difference. A faint smile crossed Reeves' face. Fair enough. The target vessel appeared on the horizon, a small-age ship flying American colors, adrift in waters known to be frequented by pirates and hostile paramilitary groups. As they approached, Maya scanned the vessel with the practiced eye of someone who had learned to spot anomalies in any environment. Something's wrong, she said quietly to Reeves. The engine failure appears legitimate. I can see the smoke damage from here, but the way they've positioned themselves, they're not drifting naturally with the current. Reeves followed her gaze, then nodded almost imperceptibly. Good eye. They've deployed sea anchors on the port side only. They're maintaining a specific orientation. He keyed his comm, alerting the team to approach with heightened caution. As they circled the vessel, keeping a prudent distance, a man appeared on deck, waving frantically. American aid workers, thank God you're here. Our engine failed, and we've been adrift for nearly 18 hours. Through her tactical glasses, Maya studied the man carefully. His clothes matched what you'd expect from an aid worker, but his hands, those told a different story. The calluses were wrong. Not the hardened palms of someone who regularly worked with equipment or supplies, but the specific pattern of someone who spent significant time handling weapons. She touched Reeves' arm discreetly, then gestured toward her own hands, then toward the man. Reeves followed her meaning immediately and signaled to his team to maintain their perimeter position rather than approaching directly. We're here to help, Reeves called back. We need to assess your situation before we can bring you aboard or attempt to tow. How many personnel do you have? Just 4 of us, the man replied. 2 doctors and 2 logistics coordinators. We were transporting medical supplies to the coastal village at Al-Mahadir. Maya leaned close to Reeves. 4 people couldn't operate a vessel this size efficiently, she whispered. And Al-Mahadir hasn't been receiving aid shipments since the regional conflict escalated 3 months ago. Reeves nodded imperceptibly, then keyed his secure comm to the carrier. Lincoln Actual, this is Reeves. Requesting additional intelligence on target vessel. Situation appears compromised. Holding position and awaiting instructions. What happened next unfolded with the chaotic precision that defines modern combat. The aid worker realized they weren't approaching and reached for something below the gunwale. Simultaneously, 4 additional figures emerged from below decks, carrying weapons. The trap was sprung, but not as its architects had intended. Taking fire! Reeves shouted as the first rounds pinged off the RHIB's armored hull. Evasive maneuvers! The RHIB operator executed a perfect tactical withdrawal, creating distance while the team established a defensive position. Maya found herself in the center of the craft, exactly where Reeves had positioned her. Not on the firing line, but close enough to provide immediate support. The operators returned precise, controlled fire. Then Maya saw what she'd been trained her entire life to notice. The subtle hitch in Petty Officer Coleman's rifle action. The almost imperceptible change in sound that preceded a catastrophic failure. Coleman, weapon down! She called sharply. He responded instantly, transitioning to his sidearm without question. Maya was already moving, keeping low as rounds whizzed overhead. She reached Coleman's position and took his rifle, her hands moving with practiced certainty despite the chaos around her. The problem was exactly what she'd anticipated in these conditions. Salt infiltration had compromised the buffer spring, and the extractor was beginning to fail. From her specialized kit, she produced the necessary replacement parts and tools. Under normal circumstances, this would be a 20-minute repair job in a controlled environment. Maya completed it in 47 seconds in the middle of a firefight. Clear and functional, she announced, handing the rifle back to Coleman, who received it with a look of astonishment that quickly transformed into focused determination as he returned to the fight. Within minutes, the situation had stabilized. 2 hostile combatants were down, the others had retreated below decks, and the RHIB maintained a tactical position at optimal engagement distance. "Lincoln actual to Reeves," crackled the comms. "Satellite confirms vessel is flagged for suspected arms trafficking. Rules of engagement authorize you to neutralize threat and secure vessel for intelligence gathering. Support is inbound. ETA 12 minutes. Reeves acknowledged, then turned to his team. "We're going to maintain position until support arrives, then execute a coordinated boarding. These aren't aid workers. They're arms dealers using humanitarian cover." He glanced at Maya. "Chief Reynolds, I need to know the status of our weapons systems. This firefight could last longer than anticipated." Maya was already ahead of him, visually checking each operator's equipment from her position. Primary weapons are functioning within parameters, but Donovan's rifle is showing early signs of the same issue I just addressed with Coleman. "I need 30 seconds with it before you attempt boarding." Reeves didn't hesitate. "Donovan, weapon to Reynolds. Martinez, cover his sector." As Maya worked on the second rifle, she maintained situational awareness, cataloging the ongoing engagement even as her hands performed the intricate repair. This was exactly what she trained for. Not just understanding weapons in sterile classroom conditions, but ensuring they functioned flawlessly when lives depended on them. "Chief," Reeves said as she returned Donovan's weapon, "I've never seen repairs executed that quickly, especially not under fire." "This is why we developed the protocols," Maya replied simply. "Theory is valuable, but application under stress is what matters." The remainder of the operation unfolded with textbook precision. Support arrived in the form of a second RHIB carrying additional operators. The boarding was executed flawlessly, the vessel secured, and valuable intelligence gathered about regional arms trafficking networks. Throughout it all, Maya remained in her support role, ensuring that the tools the operators depended on functioned without fail. Not a single weapon malfunctioned after her preventative interventions, a fact that did not go unnoticed by the team. As they returned to the carrier hours later, mission successfully completed, Reeves approached Maya, where she sat quietly, reviewing her notes on the weapon's performance. "I owe you an apology, Chief," he said without preamble. Maya looked up, surprised. "For what, Senior Chief?" "When they assigned you to this op, I thought it was bureaucratic nonsense, sending a maintenance specialist into a potential combat situation. I was wrong." He gestured to the team, who were securing equipment nearby. "Coleman would have been without his primary weapon at a critical moment if you hadn't been there. Same for Donovan. Your situational awareness saved us from potentially catastrophic equipment failures." "I was just doing my job," Maya replied, the same response she'd given after Operation Tidewater years ago. "That's just it," Reeves said, shaking his head with newfound respect. "Most people don't understand what your job actually is. I didn't until today. You're not just maintaining equipment. You're ensuring operational success in ways most of us never consider." Upon their return to the Lincoln, Maya found Captain Mitchell waiting on the flight deck. His expression shifted from concern to relief as he spotted her among the returning operators. "When I authorized your field implementation program," he said as they walked together toward the briefing room, "I didn't exactly envision you in the middle of a firefight." "The middle is precisely where I needed to be," Maya replied. "You can't understand operational maintenance needs from the sidelines." "So I'm learning," Mitchell acknowledged. "The team leader's preliminary report is illuminating. He credits your intervention with preventing multiple weapons failures that could have compromised the mission." "It validated our approach," Maya said simply. "The environmental modifications we developed at Little Creek performed exactly as designed under actual combat conditions." Mitchell studied her for a moment. "Most people would be more shaken after their first firefight in years." "Who says I'm not shaken?" Maya countered with a small smile. "I'm just channeling it productively. Besides, this is what matters. Seeing our work make a tangible difference." The after-action debriefing confirmed what Maya already knew. The specialized maintenance protocols she had developed had proven their worth under the most demanding conditions possible. Captain Ellis, the carrier's commanding officer, made a point of acknowledging her contribution personally. "Chief Reynolds, your actions today exemplify the highest traditions of naval service," he stated formally. "Your technical expertise directly contributed to mission success and potentially saved American lives." Maya accepted the recognition with characteristic humility. But privately, she felt a profound sense of validation. This was why she had requested field implementation, to see firsthand how her training translated to operational realities. That evening, in the relative privacy of the small workspace she'd been assigned aboard the carrier, Maya penned a detailed report for the Advanced Weapons Integration and Maintenance Center. Her analysis went far beyond a simple recounting of the day's events, diving deep into the specific performance characteristics of each modified component under combat conditions. She was so absorbed in her work that she didn't notice Commander Lawson enter until the officer cleared her throat. "Most people would be resting after the day you've had," Lawson observed, settling into a chair across from Maya's desk. "This is important," Maya replied, gesturing to her report. "The data from today will improve our training protocols and potentially save lives in future operations." Lawson studied her thoughtfully. "You know, when your program was first proposed, there were skeptics at the highest levels. Some saw it as an unnecessary refinement of systems that were good enough. Others thought it was too theoretical to have practical application." "And now?" Maya asked. "After today? I'd say those skeptics have been definitively silenced." Lawson leaned forward. "Word travels fast in the special operations community. By tomorrow, every team commander in the theater will be requesting your training for their personnel." Maya hadn't considered this ripple effect, but she recognized its significance immediately. The operational validation of her methods would accelerate their adoption throughout the naval special warfare community. "That's good," she said finally. "The sooner we can implement these protocols broadly, the better protected our operators will be." "Always focused on the mission," Lawson noted with approval. "But there's something else we need to discuss. Captain Ellis has recommended you for the Bronze Star with Combat V for your actions today." Maya stiffened. "That's not necessary. I was just doing my job." "A job that directly contributed to mission success under enemy fire," Lawson countered. "The recommendation stands, and preliminary indications suggest it will be approved." After Lawson departed, Maya sat alone with this unexpected development. Recognition had never been her goal, especially not combat decorations. She had deliberately chosen a path away from direct action after Operation Tidewater, finding purpose in supporting others rather than engaging threats herself. Yet today, those worlds had collided. Her expertise in maintenance had been directly tested in combat, proving its value in the most demanding circumstances possible. Her mother's voice seemed to echo in her thoughts. True mastery reveals itself when everything is on the line. The following morning, Maya was summoned to the carrier's secure communications center. Captain Mitchell was waiting, his expression unreadable. "SOCOM wants to speak with you," he said simply, gesturing to the secure video terminal. On the screen was Admiral James Harrison, commander of U.S. Special Operations Command, one of the most powerful military leaders in the world. "Chief Reynolds," the admiral began without preamble, "I've reviewed the after-action reports from yesterday's operation, as well as the broader documentation of your advanced weapons integration program. To say I'm impressed would be an understatement." "Thank you, sir," Maya replied, maintaining her professional composure despite the extraordinary nature of this communication. "What you've developed isn't just a maintenance protocol. It's a fundamental rethinking of how we approach equipment reliability in contested environments," Harrison continued. "The implications extend far beyond naval special warfare." Maya listened as the admiral outlined his vision: a joint special operations center of excellence for advanced weapons integration, bringing together expertise from across the services to revolutionize how America's most elite forces maintained their equipment. "We want you to lead this effort, Chief," Harrison concluded. "Not just as an instructor or developer, but as the Command Master Chief of the entire program. This would mean a promotion to Master Chief Petty Officer and relocation to MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa." The offer was unprecedented, a direct leap from Chief to Master Chief, bypassing Senior Chief entirely, and placement in one of the most influential enlisted positions in the special operations community. "Sir, I'm honored, but—" Maya began. "Before you respond," Harrison interrupted, "I want you to understand something. What you did on that RHIB yesterday wasn't just technical expertise. You displayed the situational awareness, composure under fire, and tactical judgment that defines the very best special operators. Combined with your unparalleled technical knowledge, that makes you uniquely qualified for this position." Maya glanced at Captain Mitchell, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "May I have 24 hours to consider, sir?" she asked finally. "Of course. This is a significant decision. I look forward to your response." After the call ended, Mitchell turned to her. "What are you thinking?" "That this is far beyond anything I ever imagined when I was cleaning rifles at Coronado," Maya admitted. "A joint SOCOM program would mean influencing how every special operations unit in the military approaches equipment maintenance." "The potential impact is enormous," Mitchell agreed. "But it would also mean stepping into a much more visible role. No more quiet service in the background." That was the crux of it, Maya realized. Throughout her career, she had chosen paths that allowed her to contribute meaningfully while avoiding the spotlight. This new role would thrust her directly into it, making her the face of a revolutionary approach to special operations support. "I need some time," she said finally. Mitchell nodded understandingly. "Take your walk. It always helps you think." Maya found herself on the carrier's observation deck, watching as the endless Arabian Sea stretched to the horizon. The vastness always helped put things in perspective. Her thoughts drifted to the journey that had brought her here, from her mother's workshop in Maine to Operation Tidewater, from being dismissed at Coronado to yesterday's validation under fire. She was so absorbed in thought that she didn't notice Petty Officer Coleman approach until he spoke. "Chief Reynolds? Got a minute?" Maya turned to find the operator whose weapon she had repaired during the firefight. "Of course, Petty Officer." Coleman seemed uncharacteristically hesitant. "I wanted to thank you personally. When my rifle malfunctioned yesterday, in any other operation, I would have been reduced to secondary capabilities at a critical moment. What you did, I've never seen anything like it." "Just applying the principles we teach at Little Creek," Maya demurred. "It's more than that," Coleman insisted. "The senior chief told us about your background, about Tidewater, why you chose to focus on maintenance rather than operations." Maya tensed slightly. Her history with Operation Tidewater wasn't something she discussed freely. "What I realized," Coleman continued, seeming to sense her discomfort, "is that your choice wasn't about stepping back from the fight. It was about finding a different way to contribute, one that leveraged your unique skills to protect others." His insight was surprisingly perceptive, cutting to the heart of the decision she'd made years ago. "After Tidewater," Maya said slowly, finding herself opening up unexpectedly, "I struggled with the direct action component of operations. Not the danger to myself, but the weight of taking lives, even when necessary. I needed to find a path that still served the mission but aligned better with who I am." Coleman nodded. "And now you've created something that protects operators like me, making us more effective while reducing the likelihood that our equipment will fail when lives depend on it. That's a different kind of courage. The courage to forge your own path of service." His words resonated deeply, offering a perspective on her journey that Maya hadn't fully articulated even to herself. Her choice hadn't been a retreat from responsibility, but a realignment of how she fulfilled it. After Coleman departed, Maya remained on the observation deck, his insights clarifying her thoughts about Admiral Harrison's offer. The joint program would allow her to extend the impact of her work exponentially, protecting operators across all special operations forces. Yet it would also require her to step into a leadership role far more visible than any she'd held before. No more quiet service in the background. She would be setting direction for an entire community. As the sun began to set over the Arabian Sea, casting long golden reflections across the water, Maya made her decision. She would accept the position, not because she craved advancement or recognition, but because it represented the greatest opportunity to serve in the way only she could. The next morning, Maya communicated her acceptance to Admiral Harrison, who seemed genuinely pleased with her decision. "You're making the right choice, Master Chief," he said, using her future rank. "Not just for yourself, but for every operator who will benefit from your program. We'll begin transition planning immediately." In the weeks that followed, Maya divided her time between completing her field implementation tour and preparing for her new role. Word of her appointment spread quickly through the special operations community, generating both excitement and, inevitably, some skepticism. "There will be resistance," Captain Mitchell warned during one of their planning sessions. Some traditional-minded operators will question why a maintenance specialist is being elevated to such an influential position. Let them question, Maya replied with newfound confidence. The results will speak for themselves. Her final act before departing the Lincoln was to conduct an intensive training session with the carrier's Special Operations Detachment, transferring as much of her knowledge as possible in the limited time available. Senior Chief Reeves approached her after the final session. "The team wanted you to have this," he said, presenting her with a custom-designed challenge coin bearing the unit's insignia on one side, and on the reverse, the silhouette of a perfectly maintained rifle with the words, "Performance when it matters most." "We had these made to commemorate your time with us," Reeves explained. "Every operator in the detachment carries one now as a reminder of what you taught us, that excellence in the fundamentals makes extraordinary achievements possible." Maya accepted the coin with genuine emotion. "This means more to me than any official recognition. That's why you're the right person for this new position," Reeves replied. "You've never forgotten what matters most, the mission and the people who execute it." On her final evening aboard the Lincoln, Maya stood alone on the observation deck, watching aircraft launch and recover as the massive carrier continued its endless patrol. Tomorrow, she would begin the journey to Tampa and the next chapter of her service. Captain Mitchell found her there, coming to stand beside her in companionable silence for several minutes before speaking. "You've come a long way from cleaning rifles at Coronado," he observed. Maya smiled. "In some ways. In others, I'm still doing exactly what I was doing then, ensuring that when operators need their equipment to function, it does. Just on a slightly larger scale," Mitchell noted wryly. "Slightly," she agreed. "Your mother called me today," Mitchell said, surprising her. "She wanted to know if I thought you were ready for this new position." Maya turned to him, curious. "And what did you tell her?" "That you've been ready for years. You just needed the right opportunity to show everyone else what a few of us already knew." Maya felt a surge of gratitude for this officer, who had recognized her potential when others had dismissed her. "Thank you," she said simply, "for seeing what I could contribute before I fully understood it myself." "That's what good leaders do," Mitchell replied. "They recognize potential and create opportunities for it to flourish, which is exactly what you'll be doing in your new position." As they stood watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Maya reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From the quiet gunsmith's daughter from Maine to the future command master chief of a groundbreaking special operations program, a path no one could have predicted, least of all herself. Yet in the most fundamental way, she was still the same person who had carefully arranged her tools each morning before anyone else arrived. Still dedicated to perfection in her craft. Still committed to serving others by ensuring the tools they depended on would not fail when failure was not an option. The quiet woman who had once been dismissed as just cleaning weapons had found her voice and her purpose. Not by changing who she was, but by embracing it fully and allowing her unique strengths to serve in ways only she could. Some heroes charge into battle, weapons drawn. Others ensure those weapons function flawlessly when needed most. Both serve with honor. Both make their country proud. And sometimes, if they're very lucky, both get to witness the ripples of their impact, spreading far beyond what they could have imagined, changing not just individual lives, but entire approaches to how America's most elite warriors prepare for their most demanding missions. Excellence doesn't need to announce itself. It simply needs to be ready when called upon. And Maya Reynolds would always be ready, in whatever capacity her country needed her most. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.